How special will this friendly be for both the clubs and the fans?
Well, it's very exciting. I think from a Newcastle point of view, obviously they've sold out their full allocation already. They're as you know, football crazy, aren't they, in the northeast of England, and it's not too far to get up to Glasgow for a big game like this. So any pre-season game of this magnitude for me is great, because you obviously look at the players have signed as well over the window, both for Newcastle and Celtic. I think the fans want to come along and see new signings and see how the team are shaping up for the new season. But it's been a while. Actually, we were just looking, weren't we, before it's 2007 since the last time. You thought there'd be more games since then, but yeah, it's fantastic that they're going to play in July 19th.
2007. What are your memories from back then?
Believe it or not, we were actually talking about it beforehand, and I remember the game quite clearly. It was the atmosphere of the fans that I remember, for it being a pre-season game. I think we'd played in Alan Shearer's testimonial before that as well, and the atmosphere within the stadium was terrific. So certainly for our club, you want to play against top quality opposition as early as you possibly can in pre-season. For our players, it gets you up to speed very quickly, and there's not going to be a better game to kind of play than against Newcastle. So it's a real good test for our boys.
What are your memories, Shay?
Yeah, probably Alan Shearer's testimonial sticks out. Obviously, being great from Newcastle and being a local lad and stuff, but the atmosphere was phenomenal, and I think it was a good choice by Alan to pick Celtic, because again, the Celtic fans travel down in their huge numbers, of course, to support him as well. And yeah, it was just a special night for Alan and his family, but I think both sets of fans made it special, didn't they? The atmosphere they created, and for us as players, it was nice obviously to be on the pitch and play in such a sort of historic game for someone who was a great at the football club, and yeah, it was a pretty special game, yeah.
How important are these types of games against this level of opponent ahead of the new season?
Again, we touched on it earlier, but certainly for our club, you want to make sure that you're going to test yourself as quickly as you possibly can against a very good opposition, because again, the quicker you can get that feeling of the opposition that you're playing against, the better it is for the start of the campaign. As a player, pre-season games were always the kind of hardest games to play in, because you're trying to find that rhythm as quickly as you possibly can. Now when you look at the quality of the opposition that both sides are playing throughout pre-season, they're real good quality games. So like I said, the players will look forward to it, and they'll relish the game.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important for the players as much as anything. They want to play in the first game of the season, don't they? And every single pre-season game is hugely important. And when you've got strong opposition like Celtic, for a Newcastle point of view, it's a brilliant game with a huge support behind them as well. Both away fans and Newcastle fans. Of course, the Celtic home fans will let them know they're in for a game. So it sets up for a great game.
Season, guys, obviously 2 League Cup winners. How special a season was it for both Brendan Rodgers and Eddie Howe, respectively?
Yeah, certainly for us. Again, I'm only going to speak about Celtic, because that's what your kind of bread and butter is. So listen, for us, it was another hugely successful season. I think the biggest positive that we could take was the progression within the Champions League. That was massive for our club. It's something that we've been looking to improve. The squad's in a really good place at the minute. You've seen that way. We winning the 2 trophies last year, so we're really looking forward to going back into this season. And that, again, the manager, the staff, the players will be willing to go after an enjoyable break.
And Stephen, for yourself, Celtic fans are obviously craving the next Keane, Tierney,
Conor
McGregor, James Forrest. How good a position is it the young players are in to maybe get an opportunity in this kind of fixture?
Yeah, listen, that's what we looked at it towards the end of the season. You've seen Sean McArdle broke through and make his debut. Jude Bonner made his debut last year. Francis Turley made his debut last year as well. So for us as a club at B team level, it's great.
Do you get a pay rise or anything?
Not quite, but you could certainly, if you want to speak to Michael, sure, that'd be great. No, but listen, for the job that we do, the most important thing is trying to get players into the first team. We know how difficult it is. Celtic supporters, they love nothing better than seeing one of their own coming through. Our job as the coaches at B team level is to try and produce young players that are capable of playing in the first team. We know how hard the job it is because of how strong our first team squad is, but when you see guys like Kieran Tierney coming back, you've still got Callum, you've still got James. My personal belief is you need people that have been through the club, that have seen the full journey, because it's a special club to be a part of. So all we do is try and help the next batch that can hopefully come through.
And Shay, obviously Eddie Howe has huge admirers within the Celtic boardroom hierarchy. How fantastic a job as he done at Newcastle?
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it's been a tough period. I think 70 years of domestic hurling. I know Stephen's parading the Celtic trophy. It's been a while since us as Newcastle fans can get our hands on a trophy. So I said to Andrew yesterday, make sure you bring the trophy with us, because it's important that we show it off now, that we've actually got our hands on one after so long. I was there for 12 years, obviously tried and failed, and this group of players and this management team have got the job done finally, and it kind of feels like a bit of a burden or a bit of a weight has been lifted in the sense of the whole football club. You've seen the celebrations, over 300,000 fans turned out at Newcastle to welcome the lads home, and it was just a very special season. And then I suppose to top it off with Champions League qualification was massive as well. And it was a scary last day of the season because I was covering it for Premier League TV in London, and of course Everton scoring wasn't the script that we were looking for. But excuse me, I think over the course of 38 games, I think it's what you do over the course of the season, not just one game. And it was the cherry on top of a brilliant season for Newcastle to get Champions League qualification. We were there 2 years ago. Some great memories. Paris Saint-Germain coming and got blown off the pitch at St James's Park. It's where you want to play, where the players want to be, and where this football club wants to be. Celtic are there on a regular basis, and I think Newcastle want to be the same. They want to be every single season qualifying for Champions League, and not just qualifying but competing. I think that's the ownership model, is to compete at the very top, both in the Premier League but in the top in Champions League as well. And it's been a great season, and Eddie Howe deserves huge credit for that. He's from day one. He's always had the right message. He said the right things. Never stopped the fans believing or dreaming that big things can happen for the football club, and feels like big things are going to happen in the future as well.
Hi guys. Shay, you spoke there about the more recent success Newcastle has had. Hopefully a catalyst for the club going forward. Champions League qualification for our club. We made some real substantial progress in the Champions League this year. Something we've really been looking for. How good is this match that's coming up on July 19th to test the waters a little bit, because for both teams this is a kind of level of opposition that we want to be prepared for. So how much are you looking forward to the match on
great. I mean, the new format, I think, for the Champions League has helped Celtic last year as well. I think I covered a lot of their games, and in previous, I think it was 4 teams, 2 really strong teams, and then it felt like after maybe a game or two it was a very difficult group to get out of. I think the whole way it's been revamped, because we were all questioning how the new Champions League was going to sort of pan out, and I think it's been really exciting actually, even right up to the final. So the new format, the league form and all that, I think it's been brilliant. It's something that Newcastle are not used to either, because 2 years ago it was the league form for them. So again, you hope to get good draws, especially with the home games, here at Parkhead, and of course, in Newcastle, home fixtures are key, and I think that proved this year for Celtic how important them home games were. So this game on the 19th, of course, is 2 Champions League teams coming head to head, not long before a season's about to start, and I know there'll be preliminary rounds for some of the teams, but for these 2 clubs, they're going straight in, and it's a great sort of, warm-up game, or call it what you want, for what's to come in the Champions League. For the Newcastle players, for example, away from home, this atmosphere will be pretty special, and it's just a test for the players and for the manager as well.
And Stephen, you mentioned earlier about KT coming back. Obviously a player you've worked with, you're now very much involved with the youth setup. How good an example is Kieran Tierney, a player who's left the club, has progressed his career, but has come back and is looking to continue his career with his peak years? How much of an example is that for the young fellas?
Yeah, I touched on it. It's massive. It's massive because we want young players want to feel as if they've got somebody that they can look up to. They've got that, but they need to see that and they need to feel that for themselves. You've got it with Callum, you've got it with James. So now with KT coming back, it gives us an extra top player, if you like. But the fact that he's coming back, his full career ahead of him after the experiences he's had, played down in England at a top club at Arsenal, is going to be invaluable, not just for himself, for the younger players, but for everybody throughout the football club. It's when somebody as good as that leaves, you want to make sure that you're financially getting rewarded for the success that he's brought, but you also don't want somebody then coming back with 2 years to go within their career and they're obviously winding it down. I think that's really important. And Kieran's coming back at the age that he's at. He's, like I said, his full career's ahead of him. For the national team, for us as a club, it's tremendous. So it's gave everybody a real boost. And for the younger lads, it's another role model that they've got to look up to.
And Shay, last question from me, but You obviously were part of the club many years ago, moved on, had a fantastic career. I don't think anyone would put that in doubt. But when you get the chance to come back up to Celtic Park, and obviously with the fixture coming up, is there ever a little hint of the what if in your mindset and wonder about what it had been like?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I mean, I was on the bench once for an Old Firm game when I was 17, praying to God that Packy Bonner wasn't going to get injured because I was going to have to come off the bench at 17. So I would have been a nervous wreck if I'm being brutally honest.
Skis boots in the car, by the way.
No. But even just driving up the road there, past Barrowfield, I remember we had to change here at the stadium and I had to run down the road as an apprentice and train, and the first team lads driving past you blowing the horn and stuff, it's just all the sort of memories come flooding back. But yeah, some great memories. I mean, the club's changed so much since I was here at 16 till 18, and even the stadium. Look around the stadium now; it's phenomenal. I was here when the old jungle was there across from the dugout. It's the way the club has moved forward and moved on it's a phenomenal club now. It's totally different animals as such, but it's great to see how the club has progressed. But yeah, it always brings back a special feeling coming back here, definitely.
Shay, you've been a part of some massive clubs in England as well. Do you feel that Celtic gets the respect it deserves sometimes down south?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it does. I think obviously Celtic and them other characters across the city, they're huge clubs, aren't they? I think, even Stephen mentioned about the success they had this year in the Champions League. I think the more successful they can be in Champions League football and the more bigger results they get in that, I think then people go, do you know what I mean? It is a club that needs to be respected, and a league, I suppose, I think the club's always been respected, but some people maybe would have a go at the league perhaps. It's not as good as the Premier League and all that kind of stuff, but I think you're tested in the Champions League probably more so than maybe sometimes in the league, and that's no disrespect to some of the lesser teams, but I think there was some big performances last season, and in the Champions League especially, they were brilliant, Celtic, so I think that you gain respect off the back of that as well.
For Stephen, what are your hopes and ambitions going into the season with Celtic be?
It always remains the same. Our job is to try and develop young players to get them into our first team. It never changes. It's for us, we're not it's not results aren't paramount. They're not the most important thing. That's what the manager and the first team staff has. Our job is to develop young players to try and then get them ready for first team football. Hopefully it's in our first team or it's somebody else's first team, and that's what we try and do. We try and bridge the gap. The biggest jump at our football club is between the first team and the B team. There's absolutely no doubt. So our job is to try and develop the players, and again, we trust the experiences that we've had. The benefit for us that we've been that young player, and it's as Shay touched on it there, your experiences that you gain from the ages of 16 to 18 to 20, that's going to determine where your career's going to go. So for us, it's about educating the boys, it's about making sure they get into the right habits, to do the right things on the pitch, off the pitch. When your career comes and goes, like both myself and Shay's career comes and goes, you get out of it what you put in, and that's what we try and say to the players. It's not rocket science. It's you give yourself the best possible chance. You work as hard as you possibly can, and you get your rewards by playing out there. And once you play out there, there's not a better place to be, especially if you've grown up in a kind of Celtic environment and you know what it means to be part of the football club. And again, going back to bringing Kieran Tierney back into the club, it's massive, and people don't underestimate just how important it's going to be for the club moving forward.
How do you each assess where both clubs are from that game in 2007? How much do you feel they've moved on since then?
Well, yeah, Newcastle I think is a different animal at the minute. I think it really is, and not in a bad way, in a really exciting way. As I said already, the ownership, they want to move the club to the very top of football, and that means winning the Premier League and winning Champions League, and I think that's where the ownership model sees itself. It doesn't see itself as just competing, and I think Eddie Howe said that himself. But as you know yourself in football, that'll take some time. There's huge clubs in the Premier League that are obviously trying to stop that. They've also got the effects of PSR and financial fair play that always seems to get mentioned when you're talking about Newcastle. But again, it's something they have to sort of judge their way around or move their way around by again. I mean, but if you look at the investment in the last 2 seasons, they haven't bought a first team player in 2 years. So I expect a big summer coming up for Newcastle. I hope they can add to the squad, and as important as adding to the squad is keeping some of the best players as well. Because I think they've got some brilliant players, and I think that's important as much as adding is to keep the best ones at the football club. But I think you have to keep adding when you're qualification for Champions League again is important, because people want to join clubs that are in the Champions League, so that helps Newcastle to bring the players to the club. And and hopefully, not putting any pressure on here, Andrew, but I hope we can get a few players in the window before this game and at Parkhead, and the fans will see them pulling on the jersey.
On a few more transfer questions. You were mentioning there about having some more players in. James Trafford, goalkeeper, Newcastle United, been talked with Burnley over him. Do you think he'd be a good signing?
It's a good question. Well, obviously I know goalkeeping department, but I do believe that the goalkeeping department is really strong at Newcastle, of course, with Nick Pope and Dubravka. Mark Gillespie signed a new contract as well. Look, it's. I think Eddie's looking to strengthen every position. I think Trafford's a brilliant young goalkeeper. He really is, and I think there's a few clubs looking at him. I don't know if the goalkeeper's a priority for Newcastle, because again, the restraints of the financial side of things is important. But I think Trafford's had a brilliant career, a brilliant season. At Burnley, broke lots of records, clean sheet records, and goals not conceded, whatever. So he would be a great addition, I think, to any team in the Premier League. It's a good politician answer, that one. It's a political answer, that one.
Yeah, it was. And can we also touch on Alexander Isak? There always seems to be talk about him. Do you think he'll be a Newcastle player by
I think he will, yeah. I think they talk about him because he's so good, and I think a lot of clubs in the Premier League would love to have Alexander Isak. But we want to keep him as well. I think that's a big message, I think, and as I said to the guys, I think it's as important to keep your best players as to add to them as well. I think obviously qualification for Champions League is a big thing as well for Alexander and the rest of the team, and I think that'll be key to keeping him on board. I'm not the powers that be at Newcastle, but for me it'd be more tying Alexander down to a longer contract and building your team around him and really sending a message out to the rest that we are here to compete, and we are here to sort of upset a few people at the very top.
Stephen, you talked about Kieran Tierney. What other areas do you think need to be strengthened?
I think the manager and the first team staff they'll look to strengthen as widely throughout the squad as they possibly can. Whilst the squad's in a really good place just now, you can see with the way that the business model for the club's been over the last few years. It's important for us that you bring in kind of younger players so that you can then sell them on. The club have done that brilliantly. So I don't see there been much change through this season. What I do know is that the manager and the staff just now will be enjoying their break. They'll be keeping an eye on what's going on, because when the pre-season starts again, she'll tell you you're full on for 10 months, 11 months. You are full on. So the manager and the staff they'll be working behind the scenes, but they'll also be enjoying a wee bit of downtime just now. They'll know exactly where the areas of the squad that they'll look to strengthen, and I've no doubt that they will strengthen the areas in due time.